We're going to continue moving on to our next panel. We're going to go from the capital side of the industry to the application layer. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for our next panel talking about unlocking the application layer. And please welcome our moderator, Jonathan of Gossamer Capital.
All right, good morning. Thanks everyone for attending our panel on unlocking the app layer on Bitcoin. I'm Jonathan Sadlowe, General Partner at Gossamer Capital and CEO of Signal 21. I'm joined here with Ken, Xverse, and Rena from Trust Machines. It's been an incredible year for Bitcoin building. A number of new layer 2s have emerged. We have runes now in the ecosystem. But the question, now that we've built so much incredible infrastructure, how are we going to bring in more and more users into the ecosystem, unlocking more and more applications? So to kick us off, I thought everybody would just do a quick intro on the company and the work you're doing in the supporting the app layer.
Sure. Maybe I can start first. So my name is Ken, founder of Xverse. I've been building on Bitcoin basically since 2017. I was an early member of the Stacks team, working on engineering, and I built out some of the early apps and infrastructure for Stacks and Bitcoin. And I started Xverse in 2021, and I've been working on basically a Bitcoin ecosystem wallet ever since.
Right.
Hi, I'm Rena. I'm the COO of Trust Machines. Trust Machines builds products on Bitcoins, everything from wallets to DeFi to infrastructure and consumer-facing apps. My Bitcoin journey is actually a little bit different. I got into Bitcoin in 2013 from the mining side. I used to work in oil, offshore on the drilling rigs, and when I learned about the energy being used to create magical internet money, that's what actually hooked it for me, and I moved from one commodity of oil over to Bitcoin.
Awesome. So, I thought we would dive in on some of the barriers to building Bitcoin applications. When we look at other ecosystems, for instance, Solana, there's 1.5 million daily active wallets. On Bitcoin, we have around 700,000 daily active wallets, but across major Bitcoin L2s, the numbers are closer to 50,000 daily active wallets. What are the barriers to unlocking more applications, more users within the Bitcoin ecosystem? Ken, I'll kick it off to you.
Yeah, I think maybe this is kind of like a chicken or the egg problem, right? First, there just wasn't that many use cases or apps on the Bitcoin chain. So there's not going to be users, and then there's not going to be a lot of builders who build for these users. And I think we saw this like very early on when we were working on Stacks, right? Even though kind of like the infrastructure is there were some good apps, but it just wasn't enough to kind of get everything kick-started, especially when Bitcoin Layer 1 was kind of stagnant and there wasn't a lot of activity. But I think that all changed basically last year when these Layer 1 protocols like ordinals started to get more attention. And actually, we were at the time, only sort of like a Layer 2 Bitcoin wallet, and we didn't pay too much attention to the Layer 1 side of things. But we saw that the Layer 1, infrastructure like wallets, they just didn't really care about any other use case other than payments. Even when people were asking wallets like Sparrow, for example, to ask support for ordinals, they said no, we don't want to support ordinals. And we saw that as an opportunity and we jumped on it. We built out support for Layer 1 protocols as well, in addition to Layer 2. And that basically got us a lot of traction. And we actually built the first Bitcoin wallet API that basically lets you connect an app to your wallet as a browser extension. And that unlocked a lot of new apps. For example, like marketplaces. Nowadays, you see like Magic Eden, OKX. They all use either our SAT Connect library, which is the Bitcoin Wallet API that I talked about, or another one, a similar SDK to connect to wallets and allow users now to be able to transact and trade ordinals and layer 1 assets. And we want to keep building that for the layer 2s as well. And that's going to be like our focus for the next year or so. And I think once the infrastructure is there, more builders will come. And we've already seen like an influx of builders in the last year. I think we can just keep doing that, and that will bring builders and bring users until we are at a point where Bitcoin is basically like the natural first community or chain that you go and build for. Yeah.
Thank you. Rena, same question. Any other barriers that you're seeing that we need to overcome to get to mass adoption?
I actually think it's a narrative shift. Most people view Bitcoin as a store of value and an investment asset, yet no one really thinks about, can I do more with my Bitcoin? Can I turn it into passive to productive asset? We're kind of in this era when originally when we all had Bitcoin wallets, we only did cold storage. The idea of an L2 wallet, bringing Bitcoin back on chain, actually using your Bitcoin for something more than retirement asset or such, has actually fundamentally shifted how people will come back to Bitcoin. We've been going through this narrative shift over the last maybe 2 years, give or take, on building on Bitcoin, Bitcoin L2s, Bitcoin products, Bitcoin apps. But when you kind of think about it from like the backstory, Bitcoin has not changed drastically over 10, 12 years. Very few hard forks, very few kind of community upgrades. And when we're coming through this new era of the revival of building, now the community is looking forward to different changes that allow Bitcoin to have more functionality. When you kind of think about it, Bitcoin script was written in like 2011, 2012. It is the same Bitcoin script core that you run today. So fundamentally, it is not evolved in the way that L2s have evolved and give you the functionality to kind of create your own destiny. What I think is really attractive on the new app movement is the idea of Bitcoin is going to go beyond sound money. You will kind of unlock it in DeFi. You may deploy it for lending protocols to get stable coins or fiat against your Bitcoin. You should always be able to have that ability. But now, as kind of Ken mentioned, we're also in the Bitcoin art space. There is high value if you attribute something to Bitcoin. And so more and more builders are experimenting on creating something of high settlement with Bitcoin. The way I would put it is if you want to experiment on something with low stakes, you're probably going to do it on another chain. But when you want to experiment with something with real money, you're going to come back to Bitcoin.
Excellent points. So wallets are the primary way that people interact with Bitcoin or dApps today. So it's critical infrastructure, two of the most important wallet builders here today. Would love your perspective on how wallets have evolved over time to meet the demands of, across obviously layer 1, but also the emerging layer 2s.
Yeah. So I think in the wallet space, especially for Bitcoin, before last year, things didn't really evolve that fast. Like we had the OG Bitcoin wallets that were very much focused only on payments and privacy. Wallets like Sparrow, again, they were very powerful wallets and they give you a lot of advanced functionality. But when the user experience just wasn't there, and there was no connectivity to applications, right? I remember in the early days of ordinals, people were trying to make it work with Sparrow, and they would have to copy and paste these raw transactions from the marketplace, paste it into their Sparrow wallet, and sign it, and then bring it back to another place to broadcast it. And that was a terrible experience. And in the last year, that has changed completely, right? Now, I would say it's basically on par now, the wallets in the Bitcoin space with anything that you can see on Ethereum or Solana. So that has moved really, really fast. I think us as wallet builders, we're both building for users as well as other builders, right? So we have to improve both on the user experience side, simplifying flows, abstracting away complexity, and also offering like a very powerful suite of tools for builders so that they can build what they want. And we receive a lot of requests like every day from builders. Can we have this API? Can we have that API? Can we do this particular way of signing because our app needs it? But one, it's difficult to we're a small team, right? Difficult to really focus on which one of those changes are important that we should focus on, and which one of those really matter, so that like we're not just wasting our time shipping all these things that maybe one person needs and nobody else needs, right? So I think there's a balance of like building powerful tools as well as like just good user experience. Yeah.
And yeah, Rena, same question to you on the wallet side of evolution.
I think it's important to think of wallets no longer just as a wallet. It is actually going to be your home for whatever you do with Bitcoin. So the approach that we're taking with Leather is that it will always be an area where you're going to transact with Bitcoin, L2s, NFTs, and such. But we want it to feel like the experience of using a Venmo or the experience of being in Twitter or whatever your normal consumer apps are that are part of your daily life. That's really how Leather, our wallet, is designed for. We're at this point that we have about maybe 1 million downloads, give or take, 200,000 weekly active users. And what our goal is that I actually want people to come into Bitcoin without really knowing what Web3 is or anything like that. So when we build, we're thinking about users who've never interacted with Bitcoin whatsoever, kind of the Web2 side coming in from the lens of our other products. And what do they need to feel comfort with using new tech, a new wallet, and such? Most do not know about private keys. They don't know about signing transaction. And it's our responsibility for Ken and I to make sure that we are bringing clean UI, usability, but most importantly, the safety and education to all of our consumers so that they kind of fall in love with Bitcoin in the way that we all did.
So the wallet is such a fundamental, critical piece to the app experience and the user experience. In the Web 2 paradigm, we have email, and that's such a part of the growth experience. Marketing teams are driving that growth through that. In the Web 3 space, we have wallets and we don't have that two-way communication in the way. Do you imagine a world where the wallet does enable more user communication? What does the wallet of the future over the next few years start to look like to help drive growth and be a catalyst for that application growth?
I can chime in. So like on our side, we're already building for our wallet to have your homes for communities. The way you interact with folks every day, you chat with them, you do videos, you host live events. All of that should be part of your wallet experience. The more we think about it, we think about what dApps will be a part of your daily life, and can that come back into the wallet layer?
Awesome. Ken?
So I think there's maybe two ways where wallets can go. One of them is like it fades into the background, just like how browsers these days are, right? Everybody's using a browser to visit websites, but you don't really think about, oh, I'm using a browser, right? And I think wallets will become so important in all your interactions that it's just like part of what you do. You don't really have to consciously think about it, and the user experience should get to a point where you don't have to think about it. Things like seed phrases, those things could be taken care of with these new advancements like MPC, like backing up to iCloud and things like that. And then the other way that I see wallets go is by being more embedded into the applications. So when users start using like a marketplace for trading or a DeFi application, they can just go to that website, that wallet will already be there, and they don't have to consciously download another wallet, backup seed phrase, and all that stuff. They can just start using the application, and then maybe later on, if they really want to have a dedicated wallet, then that could be moved to like a separate wallet. But I think right now the technology is not there. Like for you to have an embedded wallet that can safely migrate to a fully self-custody solution, you would need something like smart contracts or abstracted accounts, which currently doesn't exist. And I think that could be solved with L2s, right? For Stacks, for example, could actually solve this problem and give you account abstraction for Bitcoin.
Excellent points. All right, so I want to move us over into use cases and apps that we're excited about and that we think are going to be really successful in Bitcoin and Bitcoin Layer 2s. As you look out there today, what are your thoughts on the apps that you're most excited about? Where do you see success? We've got a lot of builders in the audience. Any ideas or hints that you could point them towards? Rena, I'll start with you.
I think a lot of it will be centered around DeFi. Like Bitcoin truly is sound money in that sense. And so if you believe that it's money, then you need to deploy it like money. So you need to borrow against it. You need capital markets with Bitcoin, money markets and such. Like all of this should be kind of part of the Bitcoin ethos and story going forward. When you want to think of maybe the other side, because not everybody is on the financial side, more people are thinking of the creative side of Bitcoin. It is a permissionless chain that you can use, and it's a decentralized permissionless chains that you can essentially build what you want, but no one thinks about like that. I really do see value in kind of the art space and like what an NFT or what an ordinal can be. When I think of an ordinal, most people just think of JPEG and that's it. But what you're not looking at is the actual block space and what the utility and value of putting something on chain that is permissionless that no one can take away. I kind of use the Bitcoin block space via ordinals as my decentralized cloud servers, something like that. So, for example, I have inscribed voicemails from my late father as an ordinal so that if one Bitcoin node runs, my dad's legacy is preserved forever. That is something that Bitcoin can do, and that is the only thing that only something like Bitcoin has that legacy preserving forever immutability power than any other chain.
Excellent.
Yeah, I also think DeFi is probably the biggest thing because of Bitcoin's sort of narrative, how it's hard money and all that. But also, I think payments are real life asset payments. Those things are also really important. And right now, I don't think that many people actually use Bitcoin for payments. One, it's too expensive, doesn't scale. Lightning has been out there for a while, but I don't really think it has solved the challenges that Bitcoin experiences. There's still a lot of user experience friction when it comes to using Lightning. But I think L2s can change that. And there's a path with L2s in Bitcoin that you can actually have very cheap payments that are really fast and doesn't have a lot of friction when it comes to onboarding. Yeah.
So on a number of other chains, there's a bunch of other use cases, whether healthcare or DPIN and other solutions like that. Do those eventually show up in Bitcoin, or do we stay down the financialization path?
I personally don't think they belong on Bitcoin. Like you can have specific L2s that serve a certain purpose, like Ethereum does it well. When you think about Polygon, you only think of like commercial use. When you think about optimism, it's for DeFi. I think there's room for that, but when I think about the base L1 of Bitcoin, that is solid, sound money, immutable. You have $1 trillion+ in security budget. I don't think that needs to be used for simple, let me buy coffee with Bitcoin. Like you want to leave the base layer used for high value settlement or high value security.
Awesome.
Well, I think you can't really stop people from building whatever they want on Bitcoin. It's permissionless after all, right? For example, ordinals, you're inscribing like JPEGs onto the chain. And in the beginning, everybody was all the Bitcoin OGs, the Bitcoin maxis are against that, but it's not like they could do anything to stop that. So I think if people wanted to, we will start to see all these different applications built on Bitcoin, whether we like it or not, basically.
All right. For all the builders out there, are there some application opportunities that you're hoping to see that don't currently exist today, whether on the L2 or the L1, that you think are kind of low-hanging fruit or good opportunities for people to consider? And we'll start with you.
Well, I think once L2s get more mature, there's probably a use case for bridging into L2s from L1, right? And that's also like a good revenue opportunity if you build like a really easy to use bridge to bring your layer 1 assets onto an L2, or even between L2s, right? Because there's now way more than one L2 solution out there. So I'll be pretty excited to see good bridging solutions.
Awesome. Rena?
I think restaking or kind of reharnessing the security budget of Bitcoin. When you have something that's north of $1 trillion and you want to build a product or app on top, you don't want to have to go through using a different consensus mechanism or designing that yourself. So the idea of maybe like an eigenlayer or kind of generic purpose, kind of harnessing Bitcoin locked on the L1 or Bitcoin derivatives on other L2s and reusing that to kind of deploy your product with security.
Awesome. All right, so final question. So what is kind of on the horizon for Xverse and Leather and Trust Machines? What are you guys really excited about? I know Xverse just launched Rune Swap, which is a huge deal. So yeah, would love to hear what's on the horizon for.
Yeah, so we actually just launched swaps for runes today, and now you can trade within the app your runes to Bitcoin and vice versa. And we've also aggregated different sources of liquidity, whether it's more like an AMM decentralized exchange or like a marketplace where you can list and unlist your runes. The next step for us would be to enable also maybe BRC20 to runes, Bitcoin to BRC20, and then after that it would be from, for example, Rune to a layer 2 token, maybe like a SIP10 token on stacks.
Very cool. Very cool. That's exciting. And Rena, Trust Machines is building so much. What's on the horizon? It's got to be.
For the leather side, we're really redesigning our UX to be consumer facing and forward and friendly. So the idea of when you're in leather, you have an integrated Bitcoin dapp store, you know where to find kind of every Bitcoin app, whether it be DeFi, ordinals, marketplaces, all in one home. That's really what's coming up on the leather side, as well as thinking about what other L2s should Leather be supporting. If you're a Bitcoin wallet, you're going to support every L2 that makes sense for Bitcoin. On the Trust Machine side, we are very much building a lot of infrastructure. I think everyone knows that we contribute to a lot of different changes on the Stacks consensus. We are building infrastructure tools. We have a stealth DeFi protocol that we are working on that will launch sometime in the near future. And really thinking about what other consumer apps that we want to kind of harness in. One that we announced just a couple weeks ago is called .locker. So the original Bitcoin naming space, the idea of connecting a Web 2 top-level domain to your Web 3 digital identity so that everybody has kind of that as their passport into Bitcoin.
Fantastic. Well, thank you to you both. Round of applause for Ken from Xverse and Rena from Trust Machines.
Thank you.